Welcome! Today, we're diving deep into the human mind. We're going to explore the science that tries to answer maybe the biggest question there is. Why are we the way we are?
I mean, think about it. You've definitely asked yourself these things before, right? Why did I react like that? Or what really makes me tick? Well, those aren't just random late-night thoughts. They are the very foundation of an entire field of science.
And to get those answers, we turn to psychology. Its whole mission is to scientifically study our minds and our behavior, to explore everything from our secret motivations to how we act in a crowd.
Now you might be thinking, hold on, isn't that just like sociology or psychiatry? It's a great question, because they do sound similar. But while sociology looks at the big picture, like group behavior, and psychiatry is a medical field that treats disorders, psychology really zeroes in on the individual. It uses science to figure out what makes a person tick.
So how does psychology actually do all this? Well, a really great way to get a handle on it is to think of its major theories as different lenses. Each one gives us a totally unique perspective on this incredibly complex thing we call the human mind.
First up, we've got the famous psychoanalytic lens, courtesy of Sigmund Freud. He argued that most of what drives us is actually happening way below the surface in our unconscious. He pictured our personality as this constant battle between three parts: the id, which is our primal, want-it-now instinct, the superego, which is our moral compass, and then there's the ego, the rational part trying to play referee between the two.
Okay, now for a completely different take. The behaviorist lens basically ignores the unconscious altogether. It focuses only on what you can actually see and measure, our actions. From this point of view, we're shaped entirely by our environment. We learn to behave in certain ways because we get rewarded for it or punished when we don't. You've probably heard of this. It's called conditioning.
Now, as a reaction to those other views, the humanistic lens came along with a much more optimistic perspective. It's all about free will and our built-in drive for personal growth. So this isn't about hidden conflicts or environmental conditioning. It's about our conscious journey to become the best version of ourselves, what psychologists call self-actualization.
The cognitive lens shifts our focus inward again, but this time it's all about our mental software. This perspective sees the human mind as a kind of information processor, almost like a computer. Our behavior is guided by how we think, how we remember, and how we solve problems. It's really all about the mental processes that take an input from the world and turn it into a behavioral output.
So what about our hardware? Well, the biological lens looks at our brain, our genes, and our nervous system as the literal foundation of our personality and behavior. A classic and pretty wild example is the case of Phineas Gage. He was a railroad worker who had this horrific accident where an iron rod shot right through his brain. Miraculously, he survived, but his personality changed completely, which gave us some of the first real evidence that specific parts of our brain are tied to who we are.
And finally, the sociocultural lens zooms way out. It argues that you just can't understand a person without understanding their world. Our behavior is deeply, profoundly shaped by our culture. Everything from how we greet a stranger to what we believe makes someone successful is influenced by the society we grew up in.
Okay, so we've got all these different lenses, right? But how do they all come together to explain what makes you uniquely you? That brings us to the science of personality.
So what is personality really? Well, it's not just a simple label. Think of it more like the unique and pretty consistent pattern of your thoughts, your feelings, and your behaviors. It's like your own psychological signature that makes you, you.
Now, when it comes to talking about personality, there are two main ways to go. You have type theories, which like to put people into neat little boxes. You're either an introvert or an extrovert, period. But today, modern psychology really prefers trait theories. These place us on a spectrum, so you aren't just one or the other, you actually exist somewhere along a continuous scale.
And the most widely accepted model we have today is called the Big Five. A super easy way to remember it is with the acronym OCEAN. The idea is that the massive complexity of human personality can actually be broken down into these 5 core dimensions: openness, conscientiousness, extroversion, agreeableness, and neuroticism. And for the record, most of us fall somewhere in the middle on each of these scales.
Okay, so this is all fascinating theory, but what's the point? Why does it matter? How can understanding psychology actually make a real difference in your day-to-day life? Let's get into it. At its core, psychology gives us a practical toolkit for living. By understanding something like empathy, we can build deeper, stronger relationships, and that naturally leads to better communication, which means fewer misunderstandings. And when we get a better handle on our own emotions, we can manage stress and improve our overall well-being.
See, it all connects.
And so that leaves us with one of the biggest, most persistent questions in all of psychology. How much of who we are is just a product of our genes and our past? And how much freedom do we really have to choose who we become? There's no easy answer, and that question sits right at the very heart of what it means to be human.